Hey there, welcome to Millennium Milestone Presents, a site dedicated to storytelling in books, movies, video games, and other exciting genres where I'm still trying to figure out who in the world caged my room. It's not funny. Stop laughing. Well, I'm back once again to look at yet another Marvel streaming TV series in the form of Noir, a Spider-Man series spin-off that gained popularity both in the comics and after the success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movies that featured both him and other characters. Now we get a live-action version of the series starring Nicolas Cage as Ben Reilly, a private eye bitten by a radioactive spider who had long retired during the days of the 30s Depression, who is brought back to the forefront of a strange and mysterious case of superpowered beings showing up out of nowhere, trying to kill Silvermane and anyone dumb enough to stop them. The series blends classic Spider-Man characters into a rich world set in the 1930s. It's your classic detective noir thrown into a superhero caper. The series also features Brendan Gleeson, who stars as Silvermane, who I would argue is even menacing, maybe even more menacing than Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, Daredevil Born Again. He's cunning, quick-witted, and always a step ahead of everyone involved. But the true standout of the series is none other than Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is a method actor unlike any other that we know. From movies like Face Off to Leaving Las Vegas, I've seen Nicolas Cage in so many different movies that I just do not believe there's not a character he could not portray and pull off something unique when he takes up that role. And Spider-Man Noir is no exception to that role. While some were singing praises about the concept and the series for the most part I've been hearing around online, there have been some that actually expressed that they were not pleased entirely with the series. Now, that part I was a little baffled with, and I went into this with a very open mind because when I saw the trailers for this, I was excited for this. I definitely wanted to give this a chance and see if this might come out a little bit differently from that of Daredevil Born Again. So, episodes 1 through 4, I didn't feel like there was any complaints to be said about it, with the exception of a few things. However, when you get to the midpoint, I do have a few things to say about that. Now, let's start off with some of the positives I just mentioned briefly about Nicolas Cage being an absolute standout in this series. He carries this series through and through when he is on the screen in every episode that he's in. That I can definitely get behind, along with Brendan Gleeson, who I just mentioned previously. The story itself, I definitely want to say, is actually pretty good on concept for the most part. It starts off, of course, with Ben being brought on a case to follow a man who apparently exhibits unusual abilities with that of catching on fire. He eventually corners him at a location where he nearly kills another freelance reporter that was paid off by Silvermane to follow this man as well. The man nearly gets killed by the man on fire and is saved by Ben, who eventually gets out of the situation with him to find out more information about this. So that setup is really good, and I am definitely already intrigued by the idea of superpowered beings now being brought out of nowhere that have an agenda over Silvermane for whatever reason. Included in this very mysterious situation is that of a songstress, that of Felicia Hardy, who is one of Silvermane's women that sings at a bar nearby. She happens to know something about this and has connections to some of the superpowered beings as well. So Ben has to also unravel a mystery between her, Silvermane, and one other character, that of the mayor, who is also involved in this situation as well. So there is a mystery element to this that actually really intrigues you throughout the series as you're trying to find out how all this connects. My man. Now, all that I've mentioned is definitely the positives for this series, and I want to be very clear. I enjoyed this series for the most part. The beginning part did pretty well, and I would even say the conclusion was really good as well in that regard. Now, it's the middle parts, starting with episodes 5 through 7, that I really have an issue with, and it has to do with virtue signaling. It's something that I've brought up quite a few times in other videos, such as especially Daredevil Born Again, which I feel there are other shows too that are even more egregious, even Ironheart, that really do this a lot. There's the racial stories that are inserted into this that I understand even in this era it would make sense, but the way the story is driven, you notice very clearly that the white man is always pointed at as the bad guy in every instance. No one that has white skin is considered a good person. However, whenever you have a Hispanic person, a black person, they never do anything wrong. There's no flaws in their characters whatsoever. And that's maybe my biggest issue. Was it something that took away my enjoyment? Not entirely, but it is something that has been a problem with many Marvel projects for a long time. It's a little less egregious here, I would argue, than most other series that I've watched. I did also forget to mention that not only are there the inserted racial bylines thrown in the series, there's also the tried and true that the women get it done more than the men attitude in this. For instance, Janet Ruiz, the secretary for Ben Riley, initially was a little annoying for me in the first two episodes. I thought she talked more than she did anything else. However, later on, the story did kind of pick up and she seemed to show her worth in the story. However, as we get further and further along, there's always this instance where someone like a Janet or a scientist or any female person that's in a position of power is never a flawed character. This becomes very apparent in the episode 7 arc where Ben is constantly talked down to by both Robbie and Janet in almost every instance. There's never a moment where Ben is the one giving the advice to them about how to do better in their lives. And that's something that I get a little bit tired of, that only the other characters that have different skin color can tell you or give you advice or any piece of wisdom whatsoever. Ben is not allowed to even speak for himself or to defend himself or to pass on anything that he sees as the right thing to do. Now, I still want to add at least one more positive thing I did forget to mention early on. The villains in this are all pretty good. Starting with Sandman, I liked Flint, the portrayal of Flint in this series. I love the idea that he's this tragic character that is in love with someone and really wants to be with that person no matter what, but is also has a sense of loyalty to being a gangster as well. You also have Megawatt, who that character, out of anybody else, I enjoyed this character. I haven't seen a performative actor like this since, and I kid you not, you may not be thinking I'm exaggerating this. I think he is probably the closest I've seen to a Heath Ledger type of character in the way he portrays Megawatt in this series. He's kind of hilarious, but very scary at the same time. And there's also Lonnie, who is the character for Tombstone in this series as well. For the most part, I like Lonnie as this quiet, tall, dark, strong character. I don't like the racial virtue signaling they have wrapped around his character arc, but the main character himself is actually really good, and I do like the portrayal of this version of Tombstone in this series. So to sum it all up, I would give Spider-Man Noir a rating of just above mid, like maybe in the middle range before excellent. Good is probably the word I'm looking for to sum up how I feel about this series. It's a good series. It could be a little bit better. It's bogged down by a little bit of virtue signaling, but it's not the worst egregious version of it. I would argue with that. I might need some of you in the comments to let me know what you thought of it as well. If you think that there were other bits that hurt the series, or maybe you thought it was actually a better series. I would like to hear what you guys think as well. I do want to keep an open mind and not always bog down every series I look at. I know I do that sometimes, but this is what I do. I try to be a little bit balanced with everything and give my take on it as well. As always, like, share, and subscribe. And I'm starting to notice I'm getting a few subscribers here as well. So I want to thank some of you that have subscribed to my channel. And please share along with some of your friends to check out my channel. And I'm also, again, game to hear anything else you'd like to hear about Spider-Man Noir, Marvel Comics, other movies that I also review here as well. But you best better believe, as always, I finish out my outro with, I'll be back.